Hello, everyone, from a beautiful beginning of a very hot day here in Boulder, Colorado. And this Facebook Live was inspired by two beautiful people. The recent one, Emily. I hope you get to see this. And she just went on a Facebook Live, beautiful, magical, sweet being. And she actually shared what some of the memories she had as a child of where things didn't make sense for her, and there was this separation, and it actually had me recall a memory as a child or a young kid that I had forgotten about. So Emily, there you are. Thank you. This Facebook Live is inspired by what you just shared, and thank you for voicing what you did. Also inspired by Dr. Dain. Many of you who may know him, but the courage he has to ongoingly share what it is that he knows with the space of vulnerability, and just, it's almost like knowing that there's maybe more people listening. So it's really interesting. I'm going to share a little about some young memories. Both my parents are from Mexico. So, I grew up labeling myself as Mexican because that's what I saw and that's what I thought. And really this conversation's coming up with everything that's showing up in the world right now, where, there's so much separation with color and race. And I thought, wow, I actually fell in that trap as well. There was, growing up in Windsor, California, back then there was one stop sign and it was considered to be Little Mexico because only Mexicans lived in Windsor. James Brooks, there you are. You're from Windsor and maybe you remember those days. I don't know how long you've been in Windsor, but when I was growing up in Windsor, I arrived in Windsor when I was in third grade from a very small Northern California town. And Windsor was different. Windsor was very different. It was, there was a lot of, I guess, people trying to figure out who they are. I can kind of see it now, but as kids, there was this pride and this challenge to prove that, I guess, just who you were. To be honest, I never got it. But yet, as I then entered fifth grade, there was a sense that you had to choose sides. And I remember, I think I was in fifth grade or sixth grade where I was in a combination class. I think it was fifth grade with sixth graders. Anyways, and I met a friend, Sasha, and she was not Mexican. And yet I started to talk to her, and I remember being out in the play yard going, Sylvia, you can't talk to her. She's Mexican. I mean, she's not Mexican. She's white. And that was the beginning of noticing the separation that was going on, because it really was Mexicans against white people. And I remember up in the school fields, there was like this large group of kids meeting up to have a little rumble. And so I went with it, not really understanding, not really knowing. So, now I questioned, like, how many people are just going and being the followers of what they think they need to choose sides? And so as a kid, there I am, fifth, sixth grade, acting real tough, like, all right, and getting in school fights. Yes, I got in school fights. And thinking I had to prove that I was loyal to being Mexican and separating myself from everyone else. And somehow that was what was expected of me. And so fifth grade, sixth grade, and then it's interesting how life changes, invite you to something new. My father then got laid off from work there in Windsor, and we moved to Hillsburg. Hillsburg, even though it was the neighboring town, had a whole entire different energy. So Hillsburg, like again, these labels, was considered a hick town. So a lot more white people. And I'm sharing these terms because that's what I grew up with. This was normal to talk about people, color, races. Like it was all to try to figure out who I was and who they were and where my place was and where their place was. And yet all it created was separation. So then I got to Hillsburg. Things were a bit different. There was still a little of that same separation of like, we're Mexican, they're not. And we belong over here. But I finally started to get there. That wasn't true for me. So I started to, as you know, for those of you that know me now, but I started to mingle with everybody. And in Windsor, Hillsburg area, one of the things that occurred is that all the Windsor kids to go to high school had to go to the next town, Hillsburg. So there I was, having already been in Hillsburg, meeting lots of people, and now high school comes. And I remember my freshman year in high school, where all my friends from Windsor showed up, and I knew all these people from now Hillsburg. It's a whole new group. And I remember there was still this sense like, where do I belong? What should I do? But I'm now acknowledging, so Emily and Dain, thank you for that, because I'm actually acknowledging I always knew. It just required courage to choose. Wow, I don't know why I'm getting so moved, but I just required the courage to choose what I knew in the face of friends might stop talking to me, I might be totally alone. So I guess I'm aware at these moments, it's like, gosh, what would it take for us to, I don't know if it's a search deep down inside to really go, what is it that I know? What is it that I would like? What is it that I know? And what future would I like to live in? You know, and I'm grateful for Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, because he just had this incredible class yesterday that, you know, living in the future. And I think to myself, it's like, all right, if I was actually going to live in the future that I'd like to live in, what would I choose? So looking at those childhood memories going, wow, I was choosing separation. Whether I really believed it or not, I was. Whether it was fights, whether it was what I was saying, trying to act cool, trying to follow the group that I thought I belonged to. And it wasn't until high school and I thought, wait, I actually have an advantage here, that I have a different point of view. And I remember one time we had this like, you know, you have those assemblies and all the kids come in and I noticed like, you know, a lot of the cool kids are up on the back, you know, just not sitting down. And it was like this sense of, do I sit down? Do I stand up? And I actually was standing against the wall with some of my homegirls from Windsor. Casi Pena was one of them. Pati Pardo was another one. And, you know, we were doing what we thought we had to do. And then there was moments where I could sense they had questions. They had concerns. And I'm like, do you want me to ask for you? So I was the one that was willing to raise my hand to have their voice be heard. Because part of being cool and standing against the wall is that you didn't engage. You didn't, you know, ask what you were curious of. And I'm so grateful for this morning, Emily. And this is where, like, what if each and every one of us voicing what it is we know, you might think it's not a big deal. And yet you inspire someone else to recall what it is that they know. And really that courage to go, no, I will, if it's required, be the voice, to have people engage, to have their voices be heard. And yet, you know, I acknowledge even greater now what a different point of view I have. That, you know, I had a nephew of my ex-husband who lives out here in Denver, Colorado, come over for dinner yesterday. And I started to notice how he was speaking. And before you knew it, it was conversations about Mexican and white people again. And I thought, really? Like, if that wasn't, and I get it. No, I'm not at all discounting what's going on in the world and, you know, all the issues that are there. I'm not at all. And yet I'm all like, are we still having those same conversations? Like, what can we choose different? And that's the gratitude that I have for Dr. Dain today on Fox News TV. He actually shared what it is that he knew that is actually possible if we start looking beyond the color, the race. And you know, yes, I was born with light skin. I don't have dark skin as from a Mexican parents. And yet, you know, that sense of racism and separation, it's like, or the fight to defend it. I just wonder what else is possible. I truly, truly do. Because, you know, as I now have chosen to travel the world and facilitate consciousness through a lot of the Access Consciousness tools, I've gotten to meet so many different people in so many different countries. And I've had people ask me like, well, what do you notice is different in this country than that country? And, you know, it all is a lot of the same issues where we're judging ourselves, not seeing that we're enough, not seeing our brilliance. And yet, I think that has nothing to do with color or race. And I guess this is just an invitation for, if it inspires you to begin to ask, what is it that you know, or have you been following the masses? You know, I could have easily continued to have chosen that. I mean, my path in school could have been very different. You know, I could have ended up dropping out of school. I was kicked out of a class. I did get into fights. Not right or wrong, but it's like there was a moment where I knew this isn't what I actually would like. And grateful for Mr. Ramirez that kicked me out of his class in high school because I never thought I would be kicked out. And had me really kind of take a moment to go, wow, is this really what I want? Am I just going to follow my friends to what everyone else is doing? Or am I actually going to have the courage to choose what works for me or what I know is possible? So before the end of the year, he did let me back in the class. And choices after that created a different future. And I get that since then, there have been different choices that I've made. Not judging them right, not judging them wrong. But I guess there's also the acknowledgement that something I've always desired, I don't know if I've ever voiced this in public, has been to create a greater future, truly. And something I've always known is that the ease, the joy, you know, that inclusion where there's no separation is possible. I've always known that, even with family issues. So, hi, Kathy. Hi. Thank you all who are connecting. And, you know, I got a little moved here with tears, but it's also just, you know, it's actually sad. I guess that's what it is. Whew. It's sad to see the separation. And I guess the only thing I can really, you know, look at and be different is what it is that I know. So, you know, I ask myself, if I wasn't defending or proving anything about what's right and wrong, what would I be choosing? What is that space in that world that I would like to see? And with that, I think I'm going to read something, another incredible man that's empowered me to continue to choose in such a dynamic way, and yet a very subtle way at times as well, has been the founder of Access Consciousness. And oh yeah, Kathy says she's been in the sadness. And what can we acknowledge? Because it's like, okay, if there is this sadness, one, truth doesn't belong to us, or are we aware of the sadness in the world of, you know, what we hoped was occurring and the change that we thought was there maybe hasn't truly reached the masses as we hoped it had. And what if we didn't give up? What if we didn't give up what we know and the possibilities we know are available? What if we didn't give up voicing the difference that we be, or the points of views that we have of a different world possible? And so that's what I'm inviting you to. And yeah, Rachel says, the separation is sad for me too. It's a lie. Yes, yeah. Not being one with what is. Exactly. I mean, I've been so fortunate, again, a choice, to be out here in Boulder, Colorado, and hiking through the beautiful Boulder Mountains. And I've been looking at nature in a different way. And I've been going, okay, if nature was showing me a possibility, what's it showing me? And when I look at all the devastation that occurs, it's like it has no point of view. It really doesn't. There could be an earthquake, a flood, a storm, a tornado, and then it just keeps moving on. It's also been showing me that it doesn't actually have a point of view where you have different plants growing with different plants, different animals all in, you know, maybe one area and then another. And it doesn't. It's this space of just allowance, kindness, vibrancy, generative. And I wonder if that's what's possible for us if we chose it. I've been fortunate enough to have a little thumper, a little bunny playing with me here too. And I've asked him, it's like, what do you know? And he kind of has this joyful energy to himself, bouncing around, eating this grass. And he kind of gives me this energy of like, hey, like you can be happy also in moments like this. Happy to know that you have a choice, what you're going to voice, what you're going to choose, where you're going to go. And I get it. Some people, you know, where there's that sense of no choice, but what choice do you have? Rather than going, I have no choice, what if the new question could be, what choice do I have here?